Now, sir, we're good.
Perfect. All right, we will call this meeting to order and Neil will take note of the roll.
Done.
There were 2 sets of minutes that were included in the packet. Or
Emailed this morning, actually.
emailed this morning. Okay, I was gonna say, I know I read through them, so.
There's Teresa, there we go.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second? I will second.
Okay.
Any changes, corrections, additions to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right. Minutes approved. Any public appearances on your end that I can't see in City Hall, Neil?
Oh, no,
All
sir.
One of these days. Is there a statement of any potential conflict of interest by commissioner members? I know Betsy.
Yes, that would be the application for funding for all the Leopold Nature Center, from which I will
Okay.
abstain.
Perfect.
Noted.
Anyone
Thank you.
else have any conflict of interest to note? All right. Thank you, Betsy. We don't have any old business, new business. We will update on room tax dollars. Neil, I don't know if you want to provide that. I know
Yep.
Mark just sent out a revised version maybe about 30 minutes ago or so.
Yep, let me see if I can track that down here and I will share that screen if I can get this up here.
I think while he's pulling that up, I think the quick highlights are we still have some outstanding probably invoices to pay out, I would imagine. I do have a question about that, but I'll wait until Neil pulls that up. And then it looks like, so we still have about 70,000 left to pay out for awards that we have committed to, which means that for this immediate year, we have about 283,000 still left. And then Mark estimated about 400,000 that we'll have for awarding for next year. So we'll have approximately $683,000 as of right now, if we make all these payments and all these payouts go out yet this year. One question I have, and maybe that is actually something Betsy and Christine might be able to comment. And I know, Christine, you have a few kind of outstanding invoices to get to the city to pay out. But I guess for example, the Earth Day with the $400 remaining there, is that you just didn't need that $400 because the total, okay. And I'm wondering, Neil, if there's a way that organizations can signify that there's no more invoices coming, because this obviously still says outstanding. But it would be nice to know, hey, we can actually pool this back into our, general commission
absolutely,
fund,
sure.
And not expect them to send an invoice.
Yeah.
Some of these larger ones, I'm guessing an invoice is going to come in, but.
Yeah, that's easy enough to follow up on, Andy, no
Perfect.
problem.
And Betsy, the one that I was going to ask you is like the 4,200 for the wedding and sustainable events. I'm guessing the invoice just totaled 35,000 instead of the 40 total thousand. So
I'm gonna need to check with Kara, but I do think she is still planning to submit for those. It might be just
okay.
of getting
And that's fine.
the invoices she needs either from the vendors or for whatever. And she,
Yep.
Neil said she's in the waiting room.
Oh, okay, hop over, let me switch screens here, I'll get her in here, they're real in here.
And that's fine. I wasn't pressuring anything, but again, Neil, if we can work in the process of payments that we know when people are done.
Yeah, probably probably a standard year-end kind of double check on those would be probably in order, so.
Perfect.
I'll send that back to the.
I just don't want to commit money or pull it
I
back.
lost her. Shoot. I think I just lost her for some reason. I don't know why.
Are there any questions
Sorry.
on the tax fund balance or projections? All right. We will
She is.
move
Kara's coming
towards,
back in right now. There she is.
here's Kara.
Yeah.
Sorry, Christine, I think the conversation on the Aldo piece might be quicker than the other piece, so we'll tackle that one first. And we'll put Kara on the spot right when she gets her video and microphone set up.
Awesome.
Here she comes. There she is.
Hey.
Hi, sorry.
You know how to make an
Um,
entrance.
Yes. Yes. So we submitted a grant for $28,000 to cover the marketing for our public events, which are Fall Fest, the Holiday Market, Maple Syrup Fest, and then the Candlelit Snowshoe Hike. And we also would like to throw a little bit more money in there towards the Trailside Backpack Program, which the Monona Tourism Commission graciously funded 2 years ago. Which has actually been a huge success with families both on site at the Aldo Leopold Nature Center, at the Monona Public Library, which they have asked slowly for more backpacks over the last of the course of the year. And I hear they always have a waiting list to check out, as well as Avid Hotels and Country Inn and Suites. Both of those hotels host backpacks for their guests to check out too. All of these events, Fall Fest, the Holiday Market, the Candlelit Snowshoe, and the Maple Syrup Fest are free events that we offer to the community. That's in part why we're asking for help marketing them. And we're also looking for ways to work with MESBA, our Monona Eastside Business Alliance. Hi, Christine. In terms of how we can beef up the offerings around those weekends. Like how can we get more people to Monona to check out these free events that we offer, and getting them those heads into those beds, if you will. This grant would go from basically to cover some of the marketing costs for Fall Fest, which is happening tomorrow at the Aldo Leopold Nature Center, and of which we've included the Discover Monona logo, in hopes that you will fund this version of this grant on all of our marketing materials. And we'll go through March of next year with Maple Syrup Fest. Would you like me to talk about some of the specifics of the marketing plans, or is there any questions that I can ask from what I've stated thus far?
Let's pause and see if there's kind of questions. And so I would say the general gist that I'm getting is that you'll work with MESBA to really utilize these funds to push kind of more heads in beds, and how to expand that kind of marketing for these types of events that are otherwise probably pretty typically more community based instead.
Yes,
That-
so, yep, and we'll include, we have the hotel links on our Fall Fest website, and we'll include the hotel links on these event websites as well. One of the things we're talking about in particular with like the holiday market coming up at the beginning of December, what else is happening in the area that weekend that we can promote to our community? And then how can we expand on that for next year? Like how we don't really want the holiday market to be the standalone event anymore. How do we create an event that is incorporated into our community, and gets people festive for the season?
tie it to the weekend getaway that MESBA did last year. One thought or question that I had with those backpacks, I was just thinking about a recent trip that my family took to Michigan, and we were staying in a hotel. Have you ever thought about providing some like checkout backpacks to like some hotels that not only kind of have some materials about the Aldo, but then they can, families could be able to take it, go to Aldo, go around, and then go back to the hotel and give them back their backpack or something
Yeah,
of that sort?
so we actually do have some at Avid Hotels and Country Inn and Suites
Oh, nice.
now in Monona. And Caitlin, one of our staff members, she changes out the material seasonally. There's English and Spanish ID guides that we build in-house, which is one of the reasons why the Trailside Backpack program does cost us money internally to upkeep, because we change out these ID guides. We build the ID guides in-house with species that you can find at the Aldo Leopold Nature Center. And so she's been just checking in on the backpacks at the library and those two hotels seasonally, swapping out ID guides, replacing materials that are broken or lost. One thing that we were thinking about too with the backpacks, and that does say empowered by or provided by the Monona Tourism Commission on the backpack itself, was that it would be also a good way for us to interact with our Monona community. So sometimes schools have fundraisers that they have silent auctions for. Sometimes our community partners, such as San Damiano, have silent auctions that we could submit a trailside backpack to or donate a trailside backpack to and kind of better support our community. And then because Monona Tourism Commission is printed on the backpack itself, there's that additional promo for this group.
That's awesome. I had an old idea then. And then I'll also reach out to you for Loud in the Library. We need some raffle items.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But I would, especially if it's of interest to the commission, be interested in, taking that idea that you had, Andy, and seeing what other hotels might be interested. I know that's maybe that's not okay. So Monona Tourism Commission, let me know, but just kind of like, how can we really grow this trailside backpack program? We haven't had as much luck getting them in with Monona Parks and Rec, I think, in part because there's a lot going on always in Monona that they're working with. But just kind of thinking of other ways that we can get these trailside backpacks into our community.
Yeah. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Colleen or Teresa? All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the grant for the request amount.
All right, is there a second? Teresa seconds with the wave of her hand.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right, that passes.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Oh, any abstentions? All right. Betsy abstains. Just want to make sure that's on the record. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with the
All
rest of your meeting.
Kara.
We will. Consideration and discussion with possible action on the 2025 tourism entity agreement with MESBA Discovery Monona Director. I know Neil sent out last week kind of the proposal that Christine brought forth, and then on Monday, yeah, it was Monday, Christine, Aaron, who's their vice president of MESBA, Neil, Mary, and myself all met to kind of walk through it and get a little bit more information and talk about just generally this kind of direction of giving a little bit more autonomy to Discover Monona. MESBA will talk, or maybe Christine can, or Neil can also highlight kind of our discussion, but also separating that out a little bit. For example, having a separate bank account. I know MESBA is also looking in creating a separate legal entity that is either DBA or how some different kind of separation, and if that makes sense for this. But I will say, my conversation or our conversation with the mayor, she was very supportive of this direction, making sure that there was enough checks and balances, but giving them the flexibility and then the money that they need to do the job, understanding that it takes, as we noted throughout this year, at many of our meetings, that it does take staff time and dedication, and with that, it does, incur some funding needs with that, and you see kind of that evolution as well with some office space needs. Right now, we're very, we're lucky in many ways that Christine works from home, but I know MESBA and Discover Monona is going in the direction of finding some locations. So as part of that, since we occupy essentially 50% of their time, that we are kind of 50% of, or somewhere around there, of kind of consideration at least. In addition, we had the conversation a couple times with Christine and Laura about, let's try to plan for the future so that we're not having them come in every quarter, that we have a meeting. So that we can give, again, more flexibility, more planning, more time back on their side of things. But with all that in mind, also thinking about reporting, The idea of having financial reports quarterly, but then having Christine or, you know, another representative from MESBA come in and actually give a little bit more of a narrative color behind some activities, at least once a year, but probably twice a year, kind of midway through, and then maybe one full year recap. And the idea is to have this happen. Obviously, there will be things that might pop up throughout the year, whether it's new events, whether it's new attractions, and we'll actually talk about one of those during this conversation. And that doesn't stop them from coming back and requesting, you know, additional funds for a different project. But we're really hoping that this contract covers maybe, you know, 95% of those types of issues. The additional thing I'll mention too is there's a piece on here, and maybe I'm going to be repeating myself at some other point in this meeting, but where there's advertising for events, whether that's events that MESBA is putting on or events that maybe some partners or some organizations that have applied through us, and we give them funding for the event, but then they'll work with, hopefully they'll be able to work with Christine and Discover Monona to boost that advertising, to utilize some of that marketing strategy that they already have in place to kind of say, here's all the things that Monona has to offer. I mean, the Aldo is also a good example of that. You know, the events that we just talked about, you know, how can MESBA also amplify that, or Discover Monona amplify that? So that's something else to think about, that we were providing kind of that marketing and advertising budget in there for them as well. And I was going to say, the final thing I'll say is the idea is that we'll see how this goes this year. So this is obviously a one-year contract, but with any organization, it's always helpful to have some forward thinking, some planning, some projections. And so again, nothing has been decided. Obviously, it would be decided by this commission, but kind of my thoughts are, we'll see how this goes this year, see how the reporting goes, see how the checks and balances, see how just the general flow of it goes. But, you know, maybe at some point we can consider a 3-year agreement with Discover Monona. Obviously, there would be some caveats of, we always have kind of the pandemic stuck in the back of our head, where then we got 0 hotel tax dollars. So there would obviously have, you know, devil's in the details of a contract. And so there would have to be some understanding that if we have no money, we have no money to give. And they would have to understand that. But that would just be some planning purposes and something to think about as we go throughout this year of how we might be able to adjust it. So this is a little bit meatier because it is including all of these things that they've applied to in the past. One thing that was helpful that Neil mentioned to me in the group was last year they applied for about $9,000 worth of contracts that we awarded last year. So this is an increase from that, but it isn't, you know, such a drastic increase that, you know, might drop your jaw type of situation. And then the other thing for the increases, you think about the staffing. You know, we've really put in more staffing because they put in more time, more funding for staffing, I should say, because they put in more time, and they've really done a good job analyzing internally what their direction is as MESBA and how much time they want to put into kind of this tourism aspect of it. So all of that said, Neil, do you have anything kind of to add to that?
Yeah, I think just quickly, I mean, I think the other thing that was very helpful, again, Christine, I think Andy had sent out and forwarded the more detailed marketing aspects, again, which Christine also provided last year, but with those essentially would be attachments and exhibits to this contract. So the breakdown of Fox 47 and Wisconsin Outdoors and all those different folks, which was great detail and super good information. Those essentially would be exhibits attached to this agreement. That kind of explain and justify where those budget amounts were. I think the important thing that Christine provided in our last conversation was that they've done a really good job, I think, of evaluating the effectiveness of those various ones and adjusted their budget accordingly on some of that proposal. So, and Christine can get into details on that specifically, which ones those are. But I think that's exactly the kind of thing I would think the commission would want to hear from and say, it's like, you know, this is what we broke down last year. This, and Christina probably has a nickel version of this. You know, this one really was great. We had good reach, we had good feedback, we had good results. This one didn't work quite as great as we wanted to, so we moved some things around to kind of address and more appropriately move those money around. So I think that's the advantage, I think, of having that sort of the marketing plan and kind of the centralized look that Discover Monona will be doing on these, is to have that actually that kind of really that feedback on these really worked really well. This didn't quite work as good as we wanted, so we're making these adjustments and have that continuous feedback kind of throughout the year in terms of what really seems to be being more effective and not. So, credit to Christine and her team for that work. I think that was really good. It was really helpful from staff standpoint, taking a look at that and seeing that. This does, I think, obviously from an administrative standpoint, certainly on the commission's part as well as staff's part and Christine's part, would reduce the amount of applications we'd have to review and those kinds of things. But those simply would be addressed. Staff is certainly, from my standpoint, I'm comfortable with getting this down to like just even a quick quarterly email update that says, hey, this is where we're at, that we could share with the commission. Or if not that we don't want to see Christine, if she wants to come in and see the commission, we'd be happy to have her in to answer questions if she's available as we go for that too. But it does simplify that a little bit in terms of kind of doing that. And instead of having to do, a follow-up report for every single type of event, there'll be allow her the chance to kind of do just a more general update saying this last quarter, we've had these events, this was the participation, this was the marketing. That can kind of be done more as a collective. It also, I think, gives her the flexibility a little bit to, we kind of look at the overall dollar figures in terms of how we market those smaller events and the hotels at those events. That gives her the flexibility to kind of move money between those events as she might see fit. I think that's the other advantage of lumping them together as part of this contract. It gives her that internal flexibility to make adjustments on that as we go. So I think overall, I think this is a step in the right direction. I think, we've taken a look at, making sure that we have some language in there that I think we certainly probably need to talk about and certainly hear from Christine on exactly the governance of this. While we're certainly trying to streamline this, I think the increase in the overall dollar figure on there probably raises some interest in this on the city, maybe the commission's part in terms of making sure, how things get voted on, knowing the MESMA board isn't necessarily all Monona folks, there's some other folks outside of that. Trying to head that off at the pass a little bit. The investment in the office space, which we think is a good idea and gives staff the ability to actually have a place to do all this work that they're doing for us and to work collaboratively. Making sure that that's an appropriate investment amount from the commission and what the commission's comfortable with on that amount is. Certainly that's a conversation that this body can have and make sure and prepared to see what's invested there. So, but really with that, Andy, I would certainly turn it over to Christine and see what she has to say about where it's at this point.
I do have a short little presentation of what we've done so far, including a couple clips to show you the different partnerships that we've had and an example of what we've been doing with them. But I guess I'll just take a pause real quickly. Does anyone have any questions up front?
I have a question about, this is for the commissioners, the budget, because this is my first year doing this. Is there a goal for the funds to be used up by the end of the year, to have funds that roll over into the next year? Since I've never been here for a full year.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say there's no official policy. What we have tried to do in the past is always have a balance. Not necessarily rolling over year to year, but not spending it all right away at the beginning of the year for the full year so that we could have other requests throughout the year. So I know that's not an exact answer, but our goal isn't necessarily to roll over money from year to year, but it's use it prudently. So if we need to spend it, we can, but also not having to, but also having some sort of fund balance. So, like I'm guessing the runs will come in and ask for funding next year at some point or different things like that. So we don't want to spend it all at once type of situation.
Okay. Because I just did some back of the napkin math and this zeroes it out between the request that we just approved for the nature center and what's showing on the balance sheet and then this request. And I just wasn't sure if that was standard operating procedure, if it was just strangely convenient that the numbers were pretty much like right on.
So that's a great comment too. So this would actually be, now we could always pay it out this year, This would be their 2025 funding. So if you look at that we would have to add $400,000 to the currently available 283. So technically we have about 600 and some. So this would be, less than half of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and all I would say, Betsy, I would add to that in terms of obviously, so I mean, looking back and, hopefully we don't have to deal with another pandemic or anything like that, but certainly having some degree of funds, kind of set aside. We would like to have some funding to roll over into the next year, just to give us a little cushion in terms of, for some reason, we have awful weather, or, season or summer or something that really causes us, something that we couldn't predict. We would like to have probably some, not that there's an official policy, but I think it certainly is a good idea to have some set of funding available to be rolled over into the next year. But we don't want to, the flip side of that is, we don't want to just simply be continuing increasing the fund balance year over year over year and not spending the money, because eventually somebody's gonna be like, what are you guys doing collecting that money if you're not spending it? So you're finding the right balance of certainly getting it out and getting it best, getting it working and marketing hotels, but doing it so smartly as well, there's at least a little bit of reserve maybe that is always available in case something unexpected would come up. So just to have in the background.
That's a good point, and that's how we had a bit of money to give away during the pandemic.
I have a
Teresa?
question, Andy. Yeah, I mean, to sort of expand on Neil's comment, people say, well, why are you collecting that money if you're not spending it? I would say, why are you rushing to spend it when you don't need to spend it just because you're afraid of losing it? That's just such a bad thing that happens with budgets sometimes. So if you don't need it, don't spend it. Be honest about it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna make us ding you next year and give you less, right? I mean, that's sort of the trust. I have sort of a big question and then just a typo, or perhaps a typo. So the intent, as I understand it, is that this document that we're reviewing now and it says 2025 at the top, we would review a similar document each year. That's the whole point.
For the current standing, yes. As it stands now, it would be every year.
And
Something like what I was mentioning in our comments, we could maybe consider a 3-year agreement at
Okay,
some point.
but just for the time being, we're going to
Yep.
test it out. Yes, lower the risk. I got it. And then minor typo, page 2, number 5, letter A, talking about the district, kind of in the middle of the paragraph, funds in this category may not be utilized for any educational purposes. Is there a reason why we need to say educational? I mean, isn't it just like any purpose whatsoever with the district? Like you cannot do it without.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. The only reason we phrase that is because Christine is actually working with the school district specifically on like a tourism track with the school district. So not that we don't want to participate in that, but I think we just don't want to automatically allocate funds as part of this contract. This very well may come up with a specific project that the commission may be like, yeah, absolutely, that's a great thing. That's great resources. We absolutely want to do that. But they would just need to be addressed through a separate agreement.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, good question though.
Yeah, and I'll just echo real quick Teresa's point about, not necessarily spending it. We don't know. There might be a $500,000 project that we want to do at some point. So
Right.
having that money roll over is never a bad thing.
I'm still on this budget piece of it. Christine, question for you. What % of your operating budget would this represent?
This would probably be a little over half of our operating budget, just because MESBA does also put some things into tourism. We're going to keep the Chili Fest for the most part. We didn't ask for any promotional money or anything like that this year because of that. We kind of keep that in there. And then our MESBA's purpose is to do networking events and things like that for the members. So, yeah, I would say the majority of our time is spent on tourism and things like that, because that is a direction the board would like to go. We're not a normal chamber of commerce in that we don't really get into policy issues. We don't really get into economic development. So the one thing that the board does want us to do is to bring people into the city. So this has just kind of been a nice alignment and it helps us a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, I only asked because if it were more than 50%, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say it. I was putting on my nonprofit leader hat, like that feels risky to have income source be just the commission. And as long as you have other income sources to support your work and you know, like this group was just saying, if something should happen like a pandemic, I wouldn't want to see your work have to halt just because your major funding source has shriveled up.
We did put a little bit more into staffing and administration this year, partially, you know, didn't really cover it as well as we should have last year. But other than that, pretty much everything on here is actually minus the office space, but that also is a non-issue at the moment because we can't find any space. But everything else on here is pretty much the money comes in and the money goes out. So if the money's not coming in, we're not doing it, you know, that kind of a thing. So really only covering the staff and office space is really the only thing that would be dependent upon, you know, like that would take a hit. And, you know, historically, we haven't had an office since the beginning of the pandemic because of that reason. So we just have to be a little bit financially more responsible on the MESBA side of things. To bring Laura back over, we would cut the additional part-time person, et cetera.
Right.
And I guess Andy and Betsy, just to build on that too, so to Christine's point, so certainly we're looking at doing this as an advanced one-time payment, kind of get the funding over to them. So if those things don't happen, certainly we're going to actually ask for Christine to provide accounting of that and so forth. We'd probably adjust future contracts rolling over those funds to the following year. So we certainly want to have an accounting of if any of those things don't happen. If they don't, we give them, you know, $14,000 or $15,000 for an office, they don't end up running an office. We'll probably leave that in there for next year, but then we don't allocate an additional 15. So we want to make sure that was an actual, and that's the reason I think for why we still kind of called out the individual sections in the contract with those budgets for each of those sections, so we can track that a little bit on a year-to-year basis.
Teresa.
Question. Talking about the dollar amounts that I'm seeing peppered throughout this document, number 4 sort of hits at the one-time big amount. Is it my understanding then that as I scroll down through the document, any other dollar amounts would be added together and they equal the dollar amount in number 4?
Yeah, I think we might be $400 off. I think,
Yeah.
Christine,
No.
if you did math on that, yeah. So we have the end up. I think it should be $256,400. I believe is correct.
Okay.
That's a great point. Because I did make that assumption that number 4
Yeah,
was the
as long
final.
as we're-
It's supposed to total up on those ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the 400.
I think this is a really good step in the right direction. Thank you for the work to put this together.
If I may, I have one more question. So given that this is a contract, I'm just wondering what is the outward facing entity then? So if you got your office space and you put the logo up on the door, what would it be? MESBA or Monona, City of Monona, Monona Tourism Commission?
We'd be calling it Discover Monona just because we've been working under that and building it up through social media and etc. So it'd be Discover Monona. There was talk of maybe trying to integrate the Discover Monona logo with the City Tourism Commission or something like that, if that would be preferable. We don't really have any qualms either way about that. And then if we did open an office, it would have both the chamber and the Tourism Commission logos on the door, which is what a lot of communities do.
And the reason for the 2 logos, and I mean, we didn't think about it too far into it, but that was a comment I made, is because right now we have the City of Monona Tourism Commission logo and Discover Monona on anything that we fund, both those logos. Well, sometimes, as we learned with like the Harry Whitehorse, you can't put all the logos on there, so you have to pick which one. And so I know the city, and I think it makes sense, the city likes to have it because it shows that we're using these hotel tax dollars for these good purposes. Well, Discover Monona just sounds better than, oh, this is a City of Monona Tourism Commission. So I just kind of threw out there, maybe there's something, I don't know if it would be a complete redesign or if some graphic designer could look at the current Discover Monona logo with the seagulls and not the other thing. And then connect them somehow. Obviously, it wouldn't be the branding of the city maybe, but so that it would just be one logo, so that if we do have those constraints, it would make more sense. Because it just feels weird to say,
Yeah,
we're one entity giving you money, but please
Right.
use both of these logos.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah,
Totally.
for me, it's almost not like that, not necessarily about the logo or the aesthetics. It's more about, even in my mind, a little confusion has been created about who's doing what for who or
Yeah.
whom. And I think we don't want to create confusion among the community also, because there's three entities really then, MESBA, Discover Monona, and the commission. And I
Right.
think there needs to be clear messaging around that. And a logo is one way to do it, but there's other pieces of that.
Well, and you bring up a good point too of, and I commented on this of, you know, Christine's definitely going to create a separate bank account for this, but then that was, well, should there be a legal entity? Because, you know, God forbid either one of them gets sued, you wouldn't want, you know, MESBA getting sued and then taking down our money or whatever it may be, or vice versa. And so maybe she was going to talk to their, you know, representatives to see, does it make sense to separate it? What does that look like? What does that cost? So then in the future, I would imagine, and anyone can correct me that knows better, it would be Discover Monona's applying for the money to continue it forward. So then really we're separate. So then if you did ever see the two logos, that means MESBA's, you know, in kind or sponsoring it, and Discover Monona is sponsoring it. So that would hopefully provide a little bit more delineation between organizations and responsibilities, even though it's Christine overseeing both. I mean, again, I don't know how that org tree would work, but.
And I
But of
feel
the
like that's,
three,
oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Tilly.
Go ahead. No, I think that's really common in most municipalities, right? That there's the outward facing brand is always different from just the Chamber of Commerce or any sort of government funding, right? So I think just Discover Monona as the brand, the public face, makes the most sense, the most simple.
Yeah, and as Discover Monona being the contracted tourism entity of the commission.
Right.
Yeah, it's messaging that is essentially an arm of acting as an arm of the commission in terms of, you know, implementing commission's wishes and funds, and yes, I mean, so I think there's a way to certainly to get there, absolutely.
Yeah, because it
Mhm.
seems like it's just slightly different from a donor. Like, we're not just a donor who is giving funds, we're actually contracting the work.
Yes,
There's a difference.
absolutely, Betsy. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it definitely feels to me like there's MESBA on its own. And of the three entities Betsy talked about, to me, it's MESBA completely separate. And then there's Discover Monona and the Monona Tourism Commission, which are really together. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the end of my presentation will probably answer some of these questions, but I think I'm just gonna go for it.
I just want to ask just to be cognizant of time too, and I want to make sure we get to your presentation. If we're not comfortable, you can say no. Are we comfortable making a motion and moving forward with this agreement? And then we can hear her kind of presentation looking at the back, or do we want to hear her presentation so you feel more comfortable about what they've done with our current funds?
How
I think
much?
I'd like to do the presentation.
Okay, that's
Agreed.
fine.
Neil or Andy, whoever set this up, could you allow me to share my screen?
Totally can do that. Hold on here. And see Christine. Make co-host. Arrow green at the bottom, hopefully, there we go.
Okay. Okay, can you see that? Can everyone see that?
Yes,
Okay. All right. So currently this is what the logo looks like. Again, we could put some waves or something in there, however, whatever, that's down the line. Basically through this last year in working with the businesses and working with my board at MESBA, one of the things that we heard from people and that seemed like people that we did work with really appreciated it is that we were campaigning for a comprehensive tourism plan for all of Monona, so that when these additional events come in, they're more of like the cherry on top than only promoting events that happen once a year, maybe that kind of thing. So it would be getting Monona on the map and then look at all the things we have to offer you. So with that, these are just some of the people we've partnered with this year. I'm going to go through this super fast. If you want a copy of it, let me know. One of the big ones, obviously, is Destination Madison, which has been an invaluable partner this last year. They've really worked at putting us in their blog post, identifying us through, I'll go to the next one, TikTok, things like that, just kind of giving us shout outs. Currently, we're working with them on a Monona Badger special, which they featured on their page. So, you know, they get thousands of, hundreds of thousands of views on things. And so it just really helps us amplify what we're already doing. Most of you know about the Monona Outdoors. Currently, we have 5. We have 2 more that are in the works. So this is why we haven't spent all of our money yet. They also have been a great partner as far as slotting us in when they have some openings for big events. Like we were featured during the Cowboys football game one Sunday. Here's just one of the commercials that we've done with them.
Nestled on the shores of Lake Monona is a place that offers some of the best beaches, fishing, boating, and biking. Monona has endless outdoor activities. Bike to Monona Lake Loop, kayak the Yahara River, or relax with lakeside dining. Experience breathtaking views of the capital while enjoying live music and drinks at our waterfront beer garden. Make it a getaway and stay the night at our hotels. Plan your summer adventure at discovermonona.com.
For more great outdoor adventures, visit fox47.com. Sponsored by Discover Monona.
So we did this general ones to kind of highlight Park and Rec this year. We also helped the sculpture festival. Of course, it had its own money, but we just kind of helped amplify that as well. We've done a couple of partnerships with Aldo Leopold. So this is one that we would really like to continue. Here's just some examples of where the viewership is. As far as the TV, you can see it's mostly southern Wisconsin. The OTT, which is this up here, that is over the top advertising. It covers mostly streaming, bypassing radio, traditional radio, TV, etc. These are things that we can focus on and we can actually target certain demographics. So for example, for the adult summer camp, we were able to target like a little bit of mid-20s to like early 40s, more outdoorsy people, etc., and then get that a wider viewership as well. So it's not just in Wisconsin. Here's what they've delivered for us so far. And as I said, we're not quite done yet. We still have a couple months, a couple of promotions to go with them. But we've been in the Cowboys games, like I said, a lot of national events and primetime TV. iHeartMedia, this is one where we have decided to cut back a little bit just because we think that this can be more of a targeted approach to certain events. For an example, you can kind of see in here, mostly in Wisconsin and Minnesota, but Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Alabama have also been targeted, and that is because of the football games. So we took like $500 in advertising on each of these football games to really reach out to the city and the university. So, and then we also
Can I ask a
ran a
question?
similar, oh, yep.
Sorry, I'm just curious about this targeting. Like, why would Pennsylvania have more impressions than Minnesota?
It's probably, that was a Penn State game, or
Okay.
that is the Penn State game, and it's homecoming. So we went a little bit harder on homecoming, and we went a little bit harder on
Oh.
Minnesota, which isn't quite coming up yet. So all of the impressions probably aren't on there yet. That one's still running.
Okay, so it's just a Big Ten. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And then just to kind of give you an example, here's what that sounds like.
Attention, Wisconsin college football fans. Take your game day to the next level in Monona, where football weekends are packed with perks. Start with dinner and beer specials at Mr. Brew's Tap House. Then unwind at a discounted stay at Country Inn and Suites. Enjoy a free round-trip shuttle to Camp Randall, whether you're holding tickets or just soaking in the vibe. Monona is your game day headquarters. Learn more at discovermonona.com. That's discovermonona.com.
And we did reach out to all the hotels. Country Inn and Suites is the only one that responded. And they had a partnership already going with Mr. Brews. So we just kind of went with that this year to play around with it and see. So it's, I think we spent $2,500 total on that. For the Discover Monona website, we have the very basic free version of tracking at the moment, so I can't really give you an overall view. I can only do 30 days at a time, but you can see mostly new people. The chili cook-off is at the top because it did just happen. However, the Lake Loop, that's where we get a lot of calls. People asking about maps for the Lake Loop, where they can go on the Lake Loop, things like that. So we know that the outdoor benefits of Monona will really sell the city if we can just, promote them a little bit more. Our top referrals are coming from Visit Madison, which is Destination Madison, of course, but we're also getting some from the city and from MESVA and social media. These are the kind of key achievements we've done in the last year and a half. So we've done 2 bike events, 2 chili cook-offs, the self-discovery weekend in February, which we're planning again for this February. And then Earth Day this year, we did get quite a few organizations within the city, so Parks and Rec, Aldo Leopold, MESBA, but then a few businesses also participated as well. So we're really looking at making that a bigger multi-day festival in the future. As far as tangibles are concerned, of course, we've done the Monona Guide for 2 years. This year, we revamped it a bit to make it more of a brochure, so more information, less advertisements, basically. The website, social media channels, etc. The big one, partnerships with hotels. I know that this is a big one for reporting, and we're really working on that. So far, we do have a link with Country Inn and Suites, and it's just under 4,000 that we can track as being specifically tied to our link, which is a 15% discount. So perhaps if people can find better deals on Expedia or whatever, we can't necessarily make them book through our link, but it was $3,997.56 that we can track. And we do know just by talking to Aaron, for example, during the Alabama game, the hotel was pretty much full. Our cook-off is another one that we can track. Last year, we had a little over 300 people that came. This year, we had over 500 people that came. And we know this because we buy can koozies every year that we give to everybody as they walk in. And we only have about 60 of them left. Oh, we bought 600 this year. Okay, so what's next? And we know that this is a huge chunk of money that we're asking for, but also we wanted to show that we're not just throwing that out there and, randomly throwing spaghetti at the wall, as they say. This is provided by Destination Madison. It's some surveys and tracking that they've been able to do. So we know that the average people coming here are looking for adventures, their family. On this next page, it shows a little bit more. You've got the 35 through 54, which are the good established working age people. They have incomes over 100,000. a little under half are families. It kind of helps us in figuring out what people are looking for when they come here, so we can piggyback on what they're doing. We can piggyback on the state of Wisconsin. Travel Wisconsin also has demographics and research like this, so we can piggyback on theirs when it fits with our overall profile that we're trying to create for the city of Monona. We also know that more direct flights are opening up, so we can try targeting a couple of these cities when we have larger events coming through, maybe like the community festival, if we can get this bass fishing trip tournament in, things like that. And then as far as deliverables are concerned, with this new partnership that we're looking at, as Andy said, we're looking at doing a new bank account with a different banking institute than we have right now, and different separate QuickBooks accounting. I spoke to my board after our meeting on Monday, and for this year anyway, we want to just do an official doing business as under the same tax ID number. It's going to be a couple $1,000s to actually separate those out. So we want to make sure that this is something that's going to be recurring before we incur those expenses. We want to have a new board of directors of 5 to 7 people. This would be comprised of community members in Monona, as well as some MESBA members and Monona-based businesses that are not MESBA members. So we really kind of want to get different segments of the community involved. We're hoping applications, as soon as this is approved, we're going to start working with the city to get that information out there to people. We're hoping to have everything done by January 1st, but we do know realistically getting applications for board members and then hopefully meeting with all of you to review and discuss the applications and narrow it down to 5 to 7 people. It could be early February before we can get that done. Let's see, that's it. So there is another thing about the bass fishing tournament, but I think I'll just, I don't know, we're running out of time. So let me know what you want me to do with that.
Let's just pause right there. Because there's 2 ways we can kind of treat this bass fishing piece. So I apologize. I thought her presentation was just looking back on the previous thing. So she looked to the future, which was great. And so I'm glad we heard that before taking action on the entity contract. Okay, so we have the contract. And then I'm wondering if you can share a quick piece about the bass fishing, because where I'm thinking, commissioners, is there's 2 ways that we can deal with this. Is one, we just make it a complete separate application and consideration, or 2, we add it into the entity contract in the in one of these sections and just kind of group that together. So Christine, I'm wondering if you can kind of introduce this idea to them, and then the commission can kind of decide which route they'd prefer to take.
So this year, I'm sure you all remember, we were working with Parks and Rec to kind of put all of our wants and needs and wishes in a barrel together. And one of their desires, wishes with Destination Madison and their partnership that they were proposing was that we try to attract some larger sporting events, specifically a fishing tournament. So we went to them, talked to their sports division, and there is a kayak series that they offer, and it has not been in southern Wisconsin and possibly even Wisconsin yet. So because of this, it would allow us to also go after some Travel Wisconsin grants. Those grants are matching funds. So that's why we kind of need to know about how much the Monona Tourism Commission would be willing to put out there, so that we can kind of start looking for other matching grants and funds for that. So, I mean, you all know it's huge when one of these tournaments come in. Let's see where. That's not the right one. So it really helps to drive tourism in the area. This is actually an RFP that they threw out there for one of their major, like grand, elite series tournaments. So this is much higher than what we're looking at when you're looking at these numbers. But one of the things that they really try to work with the local, organizations on are actually putting together a festival that would coincide with their tournament, just to bring in even more people and make it more of an event. So that's something that we could look at. I don't know if you can read this or not, but having one of the elite series, they estimate that they can bring in $1 million in revenue for the weekend. So that's a pretty big thing. These are the deliverables that they will give us. Obviously local revenue, but also, really well promoted and organized and targeted media representation throughout the country. What we have to do, and this is why we're asking for money, is just for the event itself, we have to provide hotel rooms for the staff. We have to provide meeting spaces. We have to provide security, waste management, etc. So given kind of their previous RFPs and ideas and what the Destination Madison team was able to kind of research, we think that this is probably going to be for the event itself between $50,000 and $80,000. Yeah, $1,000. We also have to kind of wine and dine them. So during this year, even if we can't get the tournament scheduled for 2025, we're working on 2026 at the minimum, maximum, I guess it would be. So we need to wine and dine them, which means we need to have scouts come and visit. We may have to pay for their travel. We'll have to pay for fees to apply. And then with those applications, they also require that you have some media to kind of show your location and things like that. So we're working with a local drone person to kind of help us get a view of all 4 lakes and the river, so we can really show that it's not just one little lake and one little area. They have this huge expanse to be able to work with. And as I said, we know that we can apply for other grants through the state and a few other places, but they're matching grants. So we kind of have to know what we can raise, including funding from the city, before we can kind of go out to that. So for this year, very, very high estimate. We wanted around 50,000 to be able to put into a chunk just for this, knowing that it could be a 2-year commitment on our end as far as wining and dining and getting them in here. And as I said, we're working with the kayak organizer right now. At the moment, we've told him that we're interested. We've given him a lot of information. We've sent him a few informational pieces on the lakes and stuff that we were able to get from the DNR. But we have not gotten one of these RFPs, so we do not know exactly what they're looking for, what kind of commitments we would need to have. So this is kind of high end, what they can give and what they can deliver. A kayaking tournament, I don't know what percentage down that would be from one of their elite events, but that's kind of where we're at with that.
So yeah, so that would be a little bit something different for the commission to consider. So that's why when Neil and I discussed it, it was either kind of a separate application or to build it into this. And it's a little different because it's also, it's what Destination Madison does to a great extent of trying to recruit. Top Chef is a good example, that they spent years spending money to try to recruit, a high class event. So yeah, so that's up to the commission. So we can either take them separately or include them, but this is something that if we don't decide on it today, we'll have to call a special session in the next, month or two.
So,
Thoughts or questions from commissioners? There you go, Betsy.
yeah, I'm not familiar with these types of events. Who stands to benefit? Is it, you're thinking it's then the city itself because of revenue from people who are visiting?
Yes. Basically, Discover Monona, we'll get our name out there and things like that, but there's not really any income to be made on this. Like the events are free for the public to come and visit, things like that. So we definitely be looking for sponsorships the day of. For example, for Chili Fest, RLS gave us the dumpsters and put some signs around saying that they were collecting the garbage. So we'd be looking for things like that. But really, the revenue that would be generated would be going into the city. So gas station, shops, restaurants, bars.
So it's like, and it's almost individuals then. Like when Top Chef came, apparently, the place that, one of the cheese places now, like they're sold out of whatever Pleasant Ridge
Yep.
Reserve.
Yeah. I forget which
Same
one it
with
was,
like
yeah.
Harvey House, like they're now booked out 2 years or whatever. So, but that's just really it's benefiting those two individual businesses. And you're thinking this comes back around to the Monona through taxes or?
Well, there is a direct hotel benefit to this size of an
Yeah.
event. I think that certainly from the commission standpoint, that's certainly the driving factor. As a Thursday to Sunday event, there's also probably scouting trips where these competitors would actually come here early, spend the night, come out and fish. The organizers would be there early. So there's certainly at a minimum the 4 days of the tournament, but also probably a plus minus a window of additional hotel stays that would be directly impacted by this type of event.
But then you also think about the restaurants and the gas stations.
Oh, absolutely. They're definitely an economic impact.
That's where
absolutely.
Aldo could, promote kind of some ancillary different things, or, this adds to the orchestration, but I know Christine in the slides had mentioned like a local festival. So I don't know if Parks and Recs wants to do just some music festival where vendors could be around, and depending on all that. So it's kind of like the high tide rises all boats.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely if there are certain businesses or organizations or something like that want to get involved with this, we'll connect them with the organizers. We'll help them get their name out there. I'm assuming we will have some sort of a festival because that just makes sense. So really, we're not going to control who does this. This is going to be who wants to do it. So we will send it out there. We'll put the information on the city newsletter. We'll put the information on our website, etc. But unless there's certain things that we really need, we're probably not going to be knocking on people's doors for this because this is a huge, So if people want to benefit from this, they need to let us know that they want to benefit from it.
I think something I'd be interested in knowing, sorry.
Yep, that's all I wanted to say.
Something I'd be interested in knowing a little bit more information. I mean, so you're asking for $50,000 just to do the recruitment, right? And then it's going to be at least $100,000 just to put on, well, 80,000, up to 80,000, I think you mentioned, estimate, just to put on the event, much less all the kind of other things. And I'm interested in if there's, and maybe the organizers know this already, or Destination Madison. I mean, are there sponsors like Mercury Marine, or I don't know, a kayak or something that would who's willing to sign up to be those bigger sponsors, so that certainly we can't pay for everything, right? So knowing that would give me a better satisfaction to say, look, we're on the hook for the recruitment of it because this is really going to benefit our hotels in Monona and the area. But, once the event is awarded here, we have all these sponsors that are going to kind of come in and help.
And we don't think it's going to take all the 50,000 for recruitment this year. One conversation with the gentleman from Bassmaster said possibly we could get something by the end of this fall if we can really get organized and get everything going, but most likely would be spring of 2026. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. We have no idea because we've never done this, and Destination Madison doesn't really have a very good idea because they've not really worked with Bassmaster too much. But we do know that there are these incurred costs that lead up to even being able to put your application in to be one of the sites. So yeah, so we have no idea how much it is, but that will go into the pot, and then that is the starting number that we'll use to start going after those matching donations through different grants. And once we get a little bit more of a concrete answer from Bassmaster, then we can start going after these large institutional sponsorships.
Is there any possibility that we would invest in the recruitment and then they would opt to not have it in Monona?
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
that's unfortunately, yeah.
Is that something where they'd opt out this year but could do it next year or the year after, or what, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Or
they
is
could
it
say
like
that-
you're done, and we have to pay
no.
$50,000 to recruit again?
Nope. As far as I understand, what it is basically we just need to sell them Monona, and then they will try to put us in to one of their slots. So we just have to compete with, maybe they have 4 of them a year and 50 cities want to do it. You know, they'll have their top picks and they'll let us know if we're completely out of the running. But they'll also let us know if, hey, we can't get you in this year, but we really like the area. Let's look at next year or something like that.
In your conversations with the person at Bassmasters, obviously they probably wouldn't have the conversation with us if we were like a complete no-go, right?
Right. They have done things in Madison before with like boating, fishing tournaments, and they really like the fact that we have the lakes and it is kayakable throughout the whole area. And we do have a lot of launches and things like that for kayaks. So they that was one of the things they were really happy about. We sent them some reports from the DNR showing that we do have a lot of fish in the area, and the waters are good. So we're hoping that we'll make it.
And I noticed in your slides, like they really require some specifics, like 100,000 square foot green space for XYZ. I mean, do we know that Monona has all of those? I know Madison probably does, but like,
right.
I mean,
So we'd have to look at like the parking lots around the hotels and that kind of thing. I mean, it might not be all at one place. This is also really large because it's for boats when we'd be looking at kayaks. So we don't
Sure.
need, maybe half that or something. There is night security, so we'd have to talk to Parks and Rec. Maybe we could use the football area that's at Ahuska that has a fence around it that can be locked at night, that kind of thing.
okay. So it's something in the sense that we could, if we wanted to approve it, you would obviously do some due diligence before probably spending some money on the application and process.
Yeah.
stuff
And like
to
I
make
said,
sure.
we don't know what the RFP is, so we're waiting for them to kind of come up with their requirements for this year, how many fishermen that they're gonna allow into each tournament, etc.
I just pulled up their event calendar and it's almost all Tennessee, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas. There's a couple in the Midwest, Michigan. There was one in Wisconsin this summer on the
By
Mississippi.
Lacrosse, I think, was it?
Mhm.
I feel like that makes us even more enticing.
Yeah. I mean, we have more to offer, just like as far as restaurants and things to do, activities, etc. in this area. But also, we have the really beautiful lakes. So, and that helps us also. There's a specific grant that we can go for with Travel Wisconsin, and part of the requirements on that is that the event has not been here before. So we can get a little bit more money that way.
All right, so I think the simple question is, do we want to consider that as a part of this entity contract, or do we want to separate? And then we
Christine,
can
do
move-
you consider this a part of your general operating procedures, or does this seem like above and beyond?
Well, this would be going to the Discover Monona side of it. So Laura is full-time. A lot of it would be put on her, and her salary that's outlined will be 100% pretty much with tourism. And then I will be doing the chamber stuff, plus the detailed stuff that has a financial component to it. I'm still going to oversee that just because that's what I'm gonna do. Just because I'm nervous about that kind of thing. So, yeah, but she'll be the one working with Bassmaster. She'll be the one organizing the people coming in and things like that. And I'll just kind of be support staff for her on events like this.
I mean, in some ways, and maybe Betsy, you were getting at this, is like, this is big time. And I feel like probably, I mean, I keep using like Destination Madison. I bet you this recruitment is kind of built into their like operating system and budget of whether it's Bassmasters or whatever else it might be, that there might be some other opportunities that Discover Monona figures out at some point in the future for a different event or different things like that. Or I know even Parks and Rec has had kind of some ideas of things where it would take a little bit more of an enticing, not to this extent, but recruitment effort. And so that could always be like a, I don't know, would it be a 5th or 6th item that we add to this, or if it would just be kind of under the advertising of local hotels and short-term rental options, we could add kind of the recruitment aspect of events that impact hotel stays. You know, so I think there's a way to do it both ways.
I don't think, I know there will be some sort of a fee that we have to give Destination Madison for helping us put this together, but that has not been discussed or anything like that yet. And I don't know if it's, you know, we can work it into our partnership for next year, or, you know, we're looking at doing the drone footage. So we've already talked about some sort of an in-kind benefit with that. We provide them with the drone footage when we have it done. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts here, but we won't be just doing it on our own. We'll have support from them and their team as well, because they, you know, they want to make sure that it's successful.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Andy, from my standpoint, that was one thing I was going to raise is obviously, I think, you know, they're going to certainly have an interest in doing this as well. Hopefully it'd be something that we would be doing collaboratively. You know, certainly they could probably take this on all by themselves if they really are interested in that. So I think kind of formalizing that relationship and exactly how we're both working together on this would be really helpful. You know, I think we could move pretty fast on putting something together if there's an opportunity that came up and Christine said, hey, this is talk to the guys at Bassmaster. This is what we need to do. We're flying them in for this tour. We're taking them to these and move pretty fast on to get a standard agreement together that we could move pretty quick on if we had to. I think everybody's probably interested. I mean, I don't want to speak for the commission, but I mean, this is kind of, this is a little bit bigger time in terms of number of visitors that, you know, I mean, I think probably tourism folks would probably say this is the kind of tourism stuff that they really want to see room tax kind of things spent on. This is a bigger ticket type of item. So I think it's very positive. I think this is the kind of thing we do want to participate in. I think figuring out exactly how, you know, how are we sharing some of these costs with Destination Madison too, not just, you know, like I said, they stand to benefit as much as we do. So how would we be sharing those? And I think kind of leveraging it, I think would be awesome. You know, that relationship's obviously already there. This is a great example of, I think, the pay to play, you know, because we're already in, we are officially a partner. This is the kind of the opportunity that we could see more things of. So, but I think it's sounds like we got the cake's got to bake just a little bit more in terms of kind of when an opportunity comes up. But I think we can move pretty fast on getting something together if the commission really was interested in doing that. And I certainly could keep working with Christine as we get ready for that. So it's not just like Christine tells me something out of the blue 2 months from now, hey, we need this. It's we could talk about, hey, this is the progress we're making. We're thinking we're going to have to do something in February or in March, or when it gets warm enough, they're going to come scout the area. We can be in communication on that and be ready to move with a separate application probably pretty fast, I would think.
And with that, it's just more so than we actually need the funds right now. We need just a general idea of how much funds you'd be willing, like the max that you'd be willing to, even so that we can start lining up some of these grants. Because some of these grants do take months to put together. So
yeah. And they have due dates, I'm sure, right, Christine?
Yeah. Right.
You mean max as far as for the recruitment, the 50,000 that you're asking, or are you just talking about the event as a whole?
I believe the Travel Wisconsin one that I'm thinking of right now will cover everything. So it could be a multi-year recruitment and procurement type of thing. But that covers sort of everything from getting them here, application process to the event and the aftermath, cleaning up, that kind of stuff.
All right, just to clarify what you just said there. So the $50,000 would come from Monona Tourism, but you are feeling confident about funds from Destination Wisconsin that would cover all the additional costs of making the event happen? No.
No, not all. They will do a matching grant. So that's why we need to know what we can get in sponsorships, what we can get in local tourism dollars, what we can get in whatever. We have to have all of that lined up before we can go to them. And that grant is pretty time consuming. And so it will take us a couple of months to put everything together. So
And
that's
Kristen-
why we're looking at 2026, just to give us time to get all of this put together, really.
Christine, and then in addition to having all those dollar amounts lined up, because of the nature of a matching grant, it's my understanding then that you also have to spend that money
Yeah.
before you're later reimbursed for it. Okay.
I think they gave the Carving Festival was not this exact grant, but it was a similar grant, and they got the money ahead of time, I believe, but had to submit reports
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just so I'm clear, the projection is 50,000 for the recruitment efforts and then up to 80,000 for the event.
That's what Destination Madison told us.
So about
All in.
130,000 total.
Over
And then
2
I think that-
years, right?
The
Yeah.
other question is your time and Laura's, Christine, if you feel like this is gonna tap you out and have you worn thin, which we also don't want.
It will be for the month or 2 months, but like up to this, we get an email from them once every couple of months or whatever, and it's just kind of tapping them on the shoulder again, saying, hey, we're still waiting to find out what you think. So I would say, it will be a big chunk here and there, but we'll try to schedule it around when we don't have other things going on, so we can just, kind of focus on this for 2 months or whatever the case may be.
And
But
that's
hopefully
also
we're
where,
organized and kind of have everything going leading up to it. That's another reason why we're kind of coming out early, to see who's interested, to see where we can get things. So when we do know that this is what's happening, kind of our ducks are in a line already.
and that's what some of this administrative costs in the contract currently is. I mean, with hiring kind of somebody as well, right? So that should alleviate a little
We
bit.
want to do a part-time person that can focus on the social media. That's a huge part of Laura's job right now. So if we can get that off of her plate, she can really focus on some more of these organizational event planning type of things that she's really good at.
It's so funny, like obviously we've got these 2 amazing lakes. I don't know why, but I'm still sort of like, I find it, the idea that Bassmaster, I mean, just I never thought that would be on our radar. Things to talk about. It's funny, yeah.
It's a good fishing spot, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean,
Interesting.
even if you stand out at San Damiano on a nice day, you can tell exactly where that drop off is.
Huh.
You'll see those guys fishing right out there. Yeah, it's a good spot.
Neil, you need to get on some of those message boards and keep saying that.
I can do that. I can. Or
Is there-
I'll do better than that. I'll tell my dad to get out there and do fishing. He'll just post every day. He goes, I have to do this to help my son. I gotta go fishing every day. So, yeah.
So the intent is to fish, let's just say this happens.
Okay.
The intent is that it would be Lake Monona,
It'd be all 4 lakes,
not-
actually.
all 4 lakes. Okay. So don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I'm just thinking about, like, you manage a project and you think about all the people that might be affected and all the ways that this could impact all these different stakeholders. I mean, how does this affect the people who are concerned about algae? How does this affect, how how does this affect, sustainability and the health of our lakes and bringing awareness to that, or the DNR? It's got a lot of audiences that could look at this in different ways, and the things that people might say, like, how do we control that? How do we get ahead of that? So, yeah.
At least these are motorless boats, they're kayaks, so,
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of
yeah.
pros comparatively.
They're
But yeah, let's not get too far down.
Yeah.
Let's, knowing that we have 7 minutes left here.
But
So it
this could
sounds
also
like,
be part of the things that we work into the festival and
You
stuff
bet.
like that,
You
get
bet.
Clean Lakes involved,
Right.
have them be a partner for some of this.
Right.
etc.
Exactly.
if I'm hearing kind of consensus, I think we should probably just decide on the entity. And then separately, I don't know exactly how you'd word it, but maybe we can make a motion if the commission's comfortable with not a full decision on an amount. Because, right, Christine, you need to know generally what we're comfortable with kind of immediately. Again, I don't know if there could be a formal motion that says we are comfortable with this amount. Again, the wording would have to change, but not holding us to it, depending on things that might change. And then to Neil's point, Christine goes through all the coordination and kind of just initial information pull to make sure that this is feasible. And then she's going to apply in March. We can pull that all together and then have a meeting to actually formalize and approve an application for the funding. Does that sound?
I'd say, Andy, if the commissioner's okay, just if there's enough interest to just say, to direct staff to work with Christine to start putting this together and what this would look like in terms of, I mean, not just putting up a number, but actually putting some detail and maybe some preliminary schedule, even if it's just guessing it. We can do that probably pretty fast and get that out via, I don't think it's necessarily anything we gotta vote on. If there's just consensus that the commission is interested in pursuing this, let Christine and I kind of sit down together and be like, look, this is what it's gonna, she's already got started on this, what's it gonna take? Here's our kind of phase 1, phase 2, here's the recruitment stage, here's the actual final respond to the RFP stage. We could lay that out a little bit and put some numbers with some meat on the bone. So I guess we can do that. I think probably do that pretty fast, so.
Okay.
And Missy has been involved in some of these conversations.
Perfect.
I don't think Jake has been yet, but obviously we'll just add him the next time we have a round of communication.
You can plug
Okay.
Jake if this starts getting a little more real, we'll keep Jake up, that's fine.
Hearing that,
I think Jake would be a good one. Missy is
hearing
sometimes
that, I'll be
interesting,
open
so.
to a motion for the tourism entity contract. Or Teresa, did you have
I'm sorry. No, I thought you were going to ask for a different motion. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I just want to get this piece done first because this is
Yep.
the larger piece, but is there a motion for the 2025 tourism entity agreement?
I move to approve the 2025 tourism agreement as written, as appearing in our packet.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a
Can I
motion.
just to be clear, could say as emailed this morning, as the updated version
Correct.
that was shared this morning.
Correct.
Okay, there we go.
And Neil,
What
did
I will
also
say-
understand that you don't need a motion in order to start working with Christine and exploring this?
We're going to do that separately. So we're
Yeah.
just doing this one now and
Yeah.
then we'll finish that conversation. I would say one amendment is make sure the total adds up. I know we
Yeah,
said that's
That's a correction. That's simply a correction, Andy. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any other comments or questions about any of that? Just with the contract agreement?
Do we have a second? I'm sorry.
Yep. I think that was Colleen.
Second, yeah.
Thank you, Colleen.
All right, seeing none and hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, perfect. All right, now I would like to formalize it as far as a motion to move the city forward with working with Christine to pull this information together for the Bassmaster.
I move to have city staff work together with Christine to start exploring this tournament and just pull together some preliminary information about what would be needed.
Second.
All right, motion in a second. Any further questions or comments? All right, hearing none and seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right. All right, hopefully, Christine, that gives you, one, the contract entity or the tourism entity agreement, but two, hopefully that gives you a little bit more of action items for and next steps for the Bassmaster piece. And we can kind of move forward with that, but
I have two quick questions, super fast.
Sure.
One, so the educational part in that, does that mean you don't want us to try to get an intern from the high school?
No, you guys can do that. It's just we can't see any, we don't, the funds can't be used for that.
For the
purpose.
programming, got
Without
it.
okay of the commission. If you get a program and you guys, I know you said you're kind of developing that. I'd say if
Yeah.
you got something and it looks like you need some funding with, by all means, you just come back and present it to the commission.
This would
Yeah.
actually be hiring one of their people that are looking to do that career path. So we'd actually hire them to be our social media person, basically. And then the other question is, as far as the board recruitment and all of that is concerned, I really do want some help with that, or like some oversight by the city. So would there be a time in December that I could send this out by email, and then maybe we meet? I think, isn't there a meeting already scheduled for the beginning of January?
Yep.
Oh,
We must
January,
enter
yeah.
January,
And then
absolutely.
like meet then to kind of go over, I'll send it out ahead of time. Everybody can take a look, and maybe by that meeting in January, we can decide who the 5 to 7 people will be.
Yeah, and I don't certainly want to speak for the commission, but I think as long as that's in motion, I don't think there's any real concern about a deadline about getting that in place. It's really what works for you guys, I think, Christine, and so if we just want to get that in place and get it done, absolutely, I think we're available. Certainly, I think Andy or me, or we can certainly get anybody else from staff here, if there's any help we can provide, we're happy to do that. So whatever works for you guys.
And we can talk about it a little bit more too, since this is kind of a new concept of, is it just 2 members of the commission that are on it? I mean, I don't want to add kind of more responsibilities. I mean, obviously oversight, 100% want to have that, but I want to make this smooth and easy. So I don't want to be a hindrance of trying to get us all to meet together, that type of thing, post the
Yeah, and
meeting, et cetera.
I agree, Andy. The
So-
important thing is there's communication between these 2 groups. If we're just putting everybody on the commission on the board, it's like, well, what's the point of having the 2 different groups?
Yeah.
So I agree,
So we can talk through kind of those particulars and then, socialize that with the rest of the
Yeah.
commission, just to make sure everyone, but again, I don't want to hold anything back. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we have consideration and discussion of possible 2025 tourism grant application schedule.
Yeah, very quickly, Andy, obviously this year we had a quarterly process, which I think it kind of worked pretty good, worked okay, it was good. I think maybe we're gonna suggest from a staff standpoint, if we would maybe want to just go to a twice a year. So like maybe a January and a July application deadline, so we have just twice a year rather than 4 times a year. Wanted to see what commissioners thought of that, or if you wanted to stay with 4 as it was, just wanted to see what the feeling was of the body here.
I think it
Betsy looks
depends
like she
on
has
the-
thoughts.
Yeah, I think it depends on the income stream. Is there a time of year where you're more likely, because we were talking at the beginning about knowing the balance that we have to give. So does that give enough?
We'll know the balance as of essentially, at least by January 30th. I mean, giving hotels the time. So we'll know what we have for that full year already in the beginning of the year.
Oh, okay.
I would say I have 2 thoughts about the schedule. One, when we post whatever we do online, let's post both the date that the applications are due and the date that we're having our meeting. I noticed the meeting dates weren't always up there. And I'm fine with 2. My only caveat would be for the tourism entity. I think having that discussion in October, at the latest November, is beneficial, just for the fact of their own planning as an organization, et cetera, for budgeting. So I think we should, I don't know if we just always want to think of that separately, but
Yeah, I
would
think that's
always wanna
separate.
have
Yeah,
that.
this is specifically just for, I think, the actual event grants.
Yeah.
Supporting is kind of what we're looking at for the schedule. That, yeah, I agree. And this part, this timing, this time of year works. It's part, it lines up with the city budget process too, and in terms of also with Christine's planning, so. Yeah, absolutely. That can be an we can just make that, plan on that as the October meeting is when that's discussed.
Yeah. Does anyone else feel strongly about keeping quarterly compared to twice a year, with a caveat of the October?
quarterly is so much better.
Then twice a year?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, we can keep it quarterly and then if we don't need it, we just
Right, exactly.
don't meet. Okay, let's keep it quarterly and then we don't meet. Now that Mesbah doesn't have to come back for all you
That's
know,
right.
different things, maybe we'll have fewer. All right. Is that good, Neil? You're good with that?
Yeah.
Any other
I think
staff
we
updates?
also want to encourage Aldo to maybe put in one single application for all of their stuff.
Well, she did combine
Yeah.
many
Absolutely.
things
Yeah,
into
no, I
one.
think it's a great start. Yeah, I think if we could get them all in one, I think that'd be great, so.
Well, I do think there's one coming in January too, so.
Perfect. All right. Next meeting is January. Sometime in January. I forget what
Yeah.
exactly it is. I think it's like January 7th or something of that sort.
Yeah, I'll confirm with that, but I'll confirm and we'll check everybody's availability for that too.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll say Teresa seconded it. So Colleen motion, Teresa second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right. Nice
Thanks,
work.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.